Hey, welcome back to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson, and I've got the 2024 Lexus RX450H Plus. This is a plug-in hybrid EV. Let's go talk about this car. For the 2024 model year, the RX450H Plus is new, though the RX redesign first came out for the 2023 model year. Now, visually, the RX450H Plus looks the same as the normal RX. The hourglass grille is very different than the previous generation. It has a more EV-inspired face, which is much more appropriate for this model as opposed to the other RXs. And Lexus as a company is doing some interesting things with their grille design because I think they're still trying to figure out what works. The new RX has this interesting nose, the new TX has a body-colored grille, and then the new GX looks more utilitarian and rugged. Now, I'm curious where they're going to head in the next few years, which of these designs will win out, and which one do you like the best? The RX450H Plus comes only as a luxury trim for now, and it comes with the 21-inch 20-spoke wheel standard. This is the only design you can get, and I think it looks very sharp, especially with this iridium premium color. The side of the RX still has that floating roof design, and I like the color-matched wheel arches, which add a touch of luxury. And so does the power folding mirrors that are also heated as well. And at the back, the Lexus RX450H Plus has that single LED light bar with the new Lexus branding with the word Lexus spelled out. Only distinction between this RX450H Plus versus the other ones is that on the left-hand side here you have your gas port, but the plug-in hybrid models also have this plug on the right-hand side. This is your J1772 plug, and you'll notice that there's no DC pins here, so you can't take this to a DC fast charger like the ones that you'll find in Electrify America stations or some other EVgo and ChargePoint stations. Now, before we jump inside, if you like these car review videos that are short and to the point, please consider hitting that subscribe because that's going to help out this channel immensely. Inside, the RX450H Plus looks the same like the other trims. It comes with this giant 14-inch touchscreen for your infotainment and also your climate controls. There's also wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto inside. There's heated and ventilated seats and also heated steering wheel. This is an automatic program, so you just set it once and you forget it. If you look closely here too, the heated seats have this other symbol on it. Well, that's the radiant knee heater. Basically, that's going to heat up this portion so that your knee is nice and warm. Straight ahead, there is a 7-inch digital screen. This is a smaller screen compared to the other Lexus vehicles, which have the 12.3-inch screen. I think they look a little bit nicer, but this one I really don't mind. And then up top, we have a 10-inch heads-up display, and I like how you can control it via these soft touch buttons on the left and right-hand sides of the steering wheel. And you can't forget about this rear-view mirror, which turns into a digital rear-view mirror. Inside, this interior is called Macadamia, and it looks really nice. It also has this ash bamboo trim. Whether this is fake or real, not really sure, but they look super nice. Let's open this up. You could find a wireless charger in here. These wireless chargers have gotten better over the years, and I used it for a long road trip, and this actually worked pretty fine. And if you don't want to use that, there's also a bunch of USB chargers in here, 2 up here and then 2 down below. This one's a traditional USB. There's also more storage down here, and then behind that we have these 2 cup holders, and I like how you could push this down if you have those extra tall drinks, and if you want to reset it, just push on this button here. I just love the interior materials in here. We have the armrest, which you could open up from both sides of the car. The steering wheel has nice leather surfaces and also these paddle shifters, which feel really high quality. And then looking over to the side on the door cards here, there are so many different materials, some soft touch materials, some cloth. They just look very fancy. As for the second row, there is a lot of legroom back here at 37.4 inches. There's also a ton of headroom at 39 inches. I'm 5'8", and I'm pretty comfortable back here. Also, this has the panoramic sunroof. I also like all of the amenities back here. You have some vents, you have heated and ventilated seats for the outboard seats, a couple of USB-C ports, and over to the side we have a nice sunshade. And if you're transporting some VIPs, you could even adjust the front passenger seat using these buttons. Now, one note about these door handles, this is electromechanical. You could still open the door traditional way like this, which is kind of odd, but the normal way of opening the door is by pressing on this button. The whole reason why they're doing this is so that if the car senses oncoming traffic when you're on the side of the road, it'll prevent the automatic unlatching of this car. So that's just one nice safety feature. As for cargo space, you have this powered liftgate, and right behind the second row, you have 29.6 cubic feet of storage space. Right below here, the floor, you have your charging cable storage. And then you can also lower the second row seats from back here by pressing these buttons. And then the space grows up to 46.2 cubic feet of space. And here's my photography bag. This is about 30 liters, the size of a small check-in bag, so that you have a frame of reference. Now, when it comes to the power, this thing is a hybrid EV. So it has a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine with a plug-in hybrid system and some electric motors. So total, this is making 304 total system horsepower. And attached to that engine is an eCVT. So this is the same hybrid layout as a Toyota Prius. And all of these are all-wheel drive models, which means that there's an electric motor driving the rear axle. And what's nice about that is that there's no parasitic loss because there's no drive shaft connecting the front and the rear axles. This is the way Toyota have been doing their all-wheel drive vehicles or all-wheel drive hybrid systems, and that's nice because it keeps the mileage up. And the nice thing about these plug-in hybrid EVs, like I mentioned earlier, and by the way, this is how you decode the Lexus trim names. The 450 doesn't really have any attachment to engine size, but this is just where it is in the hierarchy. Then you have H, which means hybrid, and then plus for plug-in. And then over to the side, this is how you charge up the car. And when you're charged up, this will give you up to 37 miles electric range, which is a nice range for a plug-in hybrid EV. It's not as much as what you'll find in a full EV, but then again, the battery is about the quarter of a size of a full-blown EV. And also, like I mentioned earlier, you won't have any range anxieties with this car because you could still fill it up with gas. And when the juice runs out, this is still a very efficient hybrid. You can get 35 miles per gallon combined as a standalone hybrid. And because this is both a hybrid and also an EV, that means that performance is pretty quick for a big car like this, 0 to 60 in about the low 6-second range. Now you have to operate this car in hybrid mode to get all of that performance, because if you just stick with EV mode, then it's not that powerful, just like the RAV4 Prime. And that's the benefit of these plug-in hybrid EVs, is that you get that low-end torque from the electric motors. So this RX450H Plus feels pretty quick off the line. And the transmission is an electronic CVT. It's not the same as CVTs with belts and pulleys, though they sort of feel the same way. As for the ride is Lexus-like. It's very comfortable for long and short road trips, and rough roads won't bother you very much. The ride quality that you know and love of past RX vehicles is still here. Road and wind noise is also nicely muted inside, and as for the handling, the RX450H Plus handles pretty nicely and confidently around town. Steering is a bit on the light side, but nice and responsive. As for the driving aids, the Lexus RX450H Plus comes with the typical safety features like the blind spot monitor, the rear cross traffic alert. There's also adaptive cruise control, the pre-collision system, and lane departure alert system. And here's a safe exit assist feature, which will prevent you from unlatching the door if there's oncoming traffic. What's new here is that there's a set of sensors right on top of the steering column, and you could kind of see it in the camera here. There's 2 lights that light up. These are infrared sensors that constantly track your face so that the car can make sure that you're not falling asleep or are too distracted or have anything blocking your eyes. This is something that you'll find in GM Super Cruise or Ford Blue Cruise equipped vehicles. They have these sensors on top of the steering column, and those systems can do hands-free level 2 ADAS. This Lexus doesn't claim that it could do that just yet, but it looks like it has all of the necessary hardware, and I'm hoping that Toyota and Lexus will have it in a few years, because it looks like they're already testing out the equipment in these new cars. As for the plug-in hybrid EV aspect of this car, 37 miles electric range doesn't sound very much compared to full EVs, but that's pretty representative of the typical American commute, which is about 40 miles or so. So if you could keep this topped off every night before you go to work, then technically you may not need to use the internal combustion engine very often, which also means that it'll reduce your overall operating costs, because depends on where you live, but where I live, electricity rates is about 9 cents per kilowatt hour right now in 2024. And that also means that if you use it for electric vehicle purposes, the operating cost is about a quarter of what you'd pay with normal gasoline. So from a cost perspective, there's some cost reduction by going with plug-in hybrid EVs. The problem is that there's a lot more hardware in here, and also it costs a lot more. Like this one cost 10 grand over a comparably equipped Lexus RX450H. And that's the real benefit of these plug-in hybrid EVs as we try to make this transition from internal combustion engine cars to EVs. And that transition hasn't really been the greatest because the infrastructure isn't really keeping up with demand. EVs don't perform as efficiently in the cold, and also the cost of EVs are a lot higher than a comparably sized gasoline car. With these plug-in hybrid EVs, you don't get the range anxiety or the nervousness of rolling up to a charging station and finding that it's all full and you have to wait an extra 20 to 30 minutes for those cars to be done so that you can charge up and spend another 20 to 30 minutes. And that 37-mile range, which isn't as big as a full-blown EV, the battery size on this thing is also about a quarter the size of a full EV. And that's an argument that Toyota and Lexus have been trying to make for a while now. They see batteries and materials to build these battery packs as a very finite resource, and that is totally the case. But if we're looking at it solely from that perspective, for one full EV like a Tesla Model Y, that has a 75 kilowatt hour battery. This plug-in hybrid EV, this has an 18.1 kilowatt hour battery size, which means that with the same resources, you could have 4 of these versus one Tesla Model Y. And if you look at it a little bit more with hybrids, the average hybrid battery size is 1.3 kilowatt hours, which means that you could build 50 hybrid cars as opposed to just one full-size Model Y EV. So if you are someone who's interested in reducing overall carbon footprint and say you're in charge of 100 vehicles, is it better to just take one of those vehicles and convert it to a full EV? Or is it better to have 4 of those vehicles be plug-in hybrid EVs or 50 of those vehicles be hybrids, which will reduce the overall carbon footprint? Toyota believes that the best case for lowering carbon footprint is the third case, which is replacing 50 of those traditional cars with hybrids. Even though there's just a small marginal improvement in mileage, you are making a bigger, more drastic change over those 100 vehicles. But in the end, what does it matter to you? In my opinion, these plug-in hybrid EVs is the best solution as we're trying to navigate through this change in this automotive era, which is probably the most dynamic I've ever seen it. There's a lot of options for you out there, and with more options, it becomes not as clear-cut as to which vehicle you should buy. But in my opinion, if you're scared about buying EVs, you still want to have that internal combustion engine option because it takes away all of that range anxiety, then I think these plug-in hybrid EVs is the way to go because you could still have that EV lifestyle if you want to. And if your commute is, say, 40 miles, 50 miles, then it'll be a very long time before you have to fill up with gas again, assuming that you top this off every time you go to bed. Which, by the way, with a level 2 charger, you could top this off in about 2.5 hours, 0 to 100%. With a level 1, well, it's probably going to take the entire night, which is okay. The catch is that there's a higher cost to these things because there's a lot more hardware. And in terms of reliability, there have been some articles out there that state these plug-in hybrid EVs to be less reliable than internal combustion engine cars and just full EVs. And that's to be expected because these plug-in hybrid EVs are also kind of on the new side. So I think give it a few more years, then a lot of them are going to be a lot more reliable, just like normal internal combustion engine cars. What's the basis of those reliability ratings? Well, I'm not going to comment on that yet. And really the best source to go is maybe Facebook groups or online forums of owners of these cars, and they'll be able to tell you what it's like to own these things. But this isn't Lexus or Toyota's first go with these plug-in hybrid EVs. They've been making the RAV4 Prime for several years now, and those are great cars. And if you want to check out my review of other Lexus SUVs, check out this video over here. I want to thank you guys for watching all the way up to this point. My name is Hanson. That's the Lexus RX450H Plus, and I'll see you in the next one.